We're live on XL 10 Minute Leaders Live. My name is Graham Brown, joined in the house by Mike Messier of YouTube fame. Mike, welcome to the show.
Graham, it's great to be here tonight. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's great to have you. I'm in Singapore. You're in which part of the world?
I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, USA. Glad to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So we've got 10 minutes together. Are you ready?
I'm ready to rock. Let's do it, my friend.
Let's do it. You know what comes first. Get ready with those cards.
MikeMessier.com. Yeah, I know this is kind of my retro card. This was the card I'd give to people if I really didn't want them to contact me. But that was a selfie at a Panera Bread where I was contemplating life and sandwiches. But for people that I do want to contact me, that's the other business card. That's taken right here in Jacksonville. That's my smiling face. And you ask people often, what would their business cards say? Mine says playwright, screenwriter, acting coach, actor, director, producer, interviewer, event host. I do host Avalonia Festival, of which I have the T-shirt. My new thing, Graham, is writing books. And we can talk about that. A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite. The cover art is by my buddy Nazar Germanoff, who's an animated filmmaker himself. He's great.
It's fiction?
This book, yeah, it's fiction. It's a novel, and it's a good book for people that don't like to read, because the way that I wrote it, there's not a lot of words. It's not thick. It's not dense. I try to create a book, a style of writing that allows people to use their own imagination to create some images. And my words are kind of percolating the thoughts in their own head. That's the way that it's a different type of writing style, but I hope people like it. And I'm working on the sequel. But A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite, is gothic horror. But you don't have to be a horror fanatic to like the book. If nothing else, the cover art is so profoundly great that you can take this into the coffee house and you can have a conversation starter with strangers if you want from my book.
All right. I'll ask you about the book in a minute. You're a storyteller, it seems, like from all of your background, the things that you do. Where did all that come from? If you go all the way back to the younger Mike, what were you like as a teenager? Were you actively creating stories and plot lines? How did that express itself back then?
In high school in particular, I started writing poetry, and I was greatly influenced by Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, the legendary folk singer, rock singer. There's just so many stories about him. We could talk about him for an hour and a half. But Bob Dylan, I got into his music, and I started trying my hand at writing poems that were kind of in his vein, with kind of some of his melodies in my head, and writing poetry. And that kind of manifested. Some of those poems weren't bad. Some of them are some of the better works I've ever written, was those high school poems. And then I started writing short stories at the end of high school. And then in college, I flip-flopped from communications major to English major, creative writing concentration. And eventually in college, me and a friend of mine named George Lamastro made a movie together called Man and You, A Providence Love Story. That took us a year and a half to make an 80-minute movie. At the time, that seemed like, oh my God, I can't believe we put a year and a half to make this thing. I'd love to make a movie now in a year and a half that was 80 minutes long, because sometimes the more you do this, the harder it becomes, to tell you the truth, Graham, as far as the filmmaking aspect.
There are so many ways now to tell stories, aren't there? I mean, we've got so many different media platforms. You can write a book like yourself, create a movie. You can do they even call them stories on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not sure if that's what you classify as a story, but there are many, many different outlets now. Is that a challenge for a creative person now, to find the right outlet, that maybe when you were younger, you could have, for example, just said, right, I'm going to study film, I'm going to go to film school, and then I'm just going to write scripts and movies, and that's it? That you wouldn't go into necessarily radio, or you wouldn't go into digital maybe. But now there's so much. How is it now for a creative writer, storyteller? Is it a great thing that you've got all these different choices, or is it a challenge? How do you see that?
It's a challenge and it's an opportunity. I mean, you can see it as both. And I would say that the greatest discipline usually is self-discipline. The hardest discipline is self-discipline. You have to, you, me, or anybody else has to say, I want to concentrate on this podcast for 2 years. I'm going to concentrate on this book for 2 years. And there might come other opportunities, either externally from friends, possible employers, or yourself that says, gee whiz, maybe I'll put this book aside and work on something else. But there's a lot of people that can start. There's not a lot of people that can finish. I explored that topic in Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary. I was sick of starting films and not finishing them. I was sick of actors bailing out on projects that I was involved in. I was sick of people not finishing short films even. And I made a documentary where I held myself accountable to that. And that documentary has won 11 awards of various kinds, from the actual doc itself to the photography that promoted the doc. And if people want to watch that, that's on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Like I said, a lot of people start things, not a lot of people finish. So if people out there want to write a book, or if they want to make a movie or a documentary, or even start a YouTube channel or a podcast, go ahead and start. But here's the real challenge. Be a finisher. Take it to the next level. For instance, I do YouTube, but I did YouTube for 2 years without knowing what TubeBuddy was. TubeBuddy is an app that you have to pay for. It's an investment, a monthly fee. It's not that much, but it helps you with the SEO, the search engine optimization, which I never even thought about, Graham, until a year ago. During this time of crisis, I put more time into what can I do to get more views and subscribers. I've gotten 500 more subscribers in the last 11 months because I actually put the time and the money into doing that type of thing. And people can find more information about that on MikeMessier.com. I have my referral link and all that good stuff. But the point is, be a finisher. We can all do a bunch of stuff. We can all be playwrights. We can all be musicians. We can all be authors. We can all be legends in our own mind. But if you don't actually finish what you start, you're kind of being a joke, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it? That I feel that a lot of people look at people like you and writers, anybody that's creative, producing creative work, publishing, they feel that it's almost like they have this creative genius and then that carries them through. And I was reading, as an example, Stephen King talking about how he used to write. And he said he would get up in the morning in his typewriter in front of him, and he would bash out 2,000 words, whether he loved it or not. And in many cases, he'd said he would crush that paper up and throw it in the trash. It never made it anywhere. But he did that every day. And there's this belief that, oh yeah, I'm going to be very motivated about this stuff. But it's the discipline, isn't it, of being able to do this day in, day out and create. And that's what I think people don't see when it comes to the craft, if you like. And I'm wondering, like you talk about being a finisher, how do you do that? How do you learn that? How do you become somebody who can write books and do videos? And this is the struggle that people have, right?
You got to be sick of failing. You have to be sick of loose ends. And to be honest, Graham, I moved out of New England to Florida for many reasons, many personal and professional reasons, and the weather and everything else. But one reason was I was working or associated with several people that were not finishers. And my name, in my own mind, maybe other people didn't care, but in my own mind, my reputation was being soiled and gummied by those associates that I had that were kind of letting people down. And I found myself being held accountable for other people's mistakes or sloppiness. And then I actually walked away from a pretty good creative thing because the partner that I had was not a finisher. He would leave people hanging. He would not finish short films and the TV show we were doing together. So long story short, I put 4 years into that project, and I'm not harping on it too much, but I'm just saying I've learned that sometimes you have to walk away from things and from people, even if you've invested a lot of time and effort into them, if they are not finishers, because they will soil you. They will take you down. And one thing, Graham, about writing this book is that I feel so good about writing a book where I self-published it on Amazon. And a lot of people don't understand it's a lot easier now to self-publish. And the stigma of being a self-publisher is not it's not bad anymore, because you still get that, whatever it's called, the ISBN number. because the point is, if I can create this book and write it and publish it, I didn't pay anyone for the graphics or for the layout. My friend Nazar did the art as a way to promote himself too. I just got sick of the greatest thing about filmmaking and theater is the collaboration, and the worst thing is the collaboration, because whenever you're depending on other people, you're at their mercy in a sense. So being a writer is great, because then you're like, I wrote this and you can buy it or not, you can like it or not, but this is me, this is what I did, and it's not 20 or 30 other people chipping in, like I said, besides the cover art, because Nazar did a great job with the cover art. But I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, it's all your own work. Exactly. No, it does. All right, well, let's round it up then. And in the 1 minute that we got left, I know this is a bit unfair, but I'm sure you like a challenge.
Sure.
In the 1 minute that we have left, give us the opening scene to the book.
Because Joe appears as just another average Joe with a chip on his shoulder, if we even notice the chip, we may not choose to notice Joe himself, and that would be our mistake. Because this Joe, our very average Joe, has tapped into something, a crinkle in our understanding of time, the nature of time, and the possibilities of how we think and how we make choices that affects ourselves, others, and all of humanity. Joe Average is a very important person after all. Joe Humble is our hero in crisis.
Mike Messier, everybody. Where do we find out more about you?
MikeMessier.com, and the YouTube channel is literally titled Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, and Avalonia Festival for filmmakers, photographers, and all types of good people. Graham, this has been a pleasure, and I hope you're safe and everything's great for you in Singapore, man. This is great talking to you, and maybe we'll meet in person someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for joining us today.